We are now live.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to call to order this special call meeting of the Lincoln County Board of Education. We have a number of discussion items on the agenda tonight, and then we have two items at the end of the agenda that will possibly result in action. Our first item, 2A, is the revised safety and security project step-by-step process. Mr. Darren Yaden, I believe you have that.
Yeah, we were just, Mr. Rowe had asked me just to kind of give a little update on how we were going with we had talked about using that security money for the key cards for all of our schools for entrance. Instead of having an actual key, you would have the key cards. So we've made some progress on that. We've met with the architect, and we've met with an architect and a guy who specializes in that, who's giving us a little direction. And our next step will be going out and doing walkthroughs through the schools and see actually where the key card will be, and not only the location where they'll be and how many we can actually afford. And right now, I think, Mr. Rowe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're thinking maybe roughly we can get maybe 45 out there in the district. I think so, right?
49, if the number they say is correct.
All of our money for that. So we're looking forward to that. What we will do is we'll go to our smaller schools, and I think we can cover them no problem, and then get all the way up to our bigger schools. And because I don't think we'll obviously, with our big schools like the high school and middle school, have enough to cover all the doors. But what we got left, we'll use the money for that there. And that's at the money we got for security upgrades.
Okay. If
y'all got any questions on that, I can answer them now. But it's going to be an awesome thing. I know that's something we've talked about for quite a while, and it's kind of the timing of getting this money is a good time, because we've been kind of looking how we could do that with our general fund money for the last couple of years.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Is Mr. Hubble with us?
I don't see him has in and logged in yet now.
No. Hopefully we'll be able to get him on here soon. All right. Second item on the agenda involves a social media post. Mr. Rowe.
Yeah, I just wanted to address something that was brought to our attention. Kind of read a statement here first. It's the goal of the Lincoln County School District to strive to provide the accurate information they can to our stakeholders. Our normal protocol is to limit responses to social media posts and just try to stick to the facts. However, in this instance, it was brought to the attention of the district that a letter from the council representing Ricky King, Jim Broadbent, and McKinney School Recovery Incorporated was shared on social media. The letter was addressed to our board attorney, the Honorable Jonathan Baker, and posted on Facebook. I think this was even before he was able to read the letter, which I find quite interesting. I'm now going to read a letter addressed directly to me from the Honorable Larry Bryson, who is representing the Lincoln County Board of Education in the lawsuit filed by Ricky King, Jim Broadbent, and McKinney School Recovery. Dear Superintendent Rowe, I have reviewed David Spinard's letter of October 1, 2020 to Board Attorney Honorable Jonathan Marr Baker. I agree completely with Mr. Baker's representation that because of the litigation by the plaintiffs in Franklin Circuit Court in civil action number 19-CI-01302, the plan of the welding class could not be implemented. All public school districts in Kentucky are required to submit a 4-year facility plan that requires extensive planning and involvement, as well as the school board's approval. An amendment may be sought during the term of the 4-year plan. However, because of the injunction relief sought by the plaintiffs, the Kentucky Department of Education would not approve any amendments to the plan after the lawsuit was filed. While Mr. Spinard expressed his opinion to Mr. Baker about the order, the reality of the situation is that KDE would not approve an amendment to the plan to allow construction modification to the building under consideration for the welding class. While Mr. Spinard may take issue with the Kentucky Department of Education as to the literal wording of the order, and the plaintiffs may wish to deflect responsibility for this problem, it is clear that the plaintiff sought injunctive relief, and KDE would not consider modifications to the facility plan that would have permitted the welding class. Otherwise, the Lincoln County Board of Education would have moved forward with modification plans for the building and for the welding class. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Baker if he's got any comments on this.
I believe that Mr. Bryson accurately reflected that. I think, and at the time of the meeting on July 9, 2020, that is what KD had informed us, was that we weren't able to move forward. And that was what the board discussed. It was accurate. There was no misrepresentation in that. I'm confused a little bit now, being in October, what the purpose of that letter was. I think it was took place on social media. I agree with Mr. Bryson. And, following that meeting, they also failed to mention that in the August meeting, we were informed by KDE that we may be able to move forward, but we'd have to have an asterisk by it and a couple other things that they would have to approve. So I don't think that letter was accurate. And I think that the board's representation was accurate.
Anybody have any questions? Okay.
So why did it take from January the 22nd all the way up to September the 16th for us to be told that?
You were informed on August 6th, the August 6th meeting, the next meeting immediately following the July 9 meeting.
So I guess my question again is, I think that agreed upon order was put in back in January the 22nd, and supposedly there was a letter sent to us on September the 16th telling us that. So it took from January the 22nd all the way up till September the 16th for us to be told that.
Well, no, that's not accurate. The agreed order was entered in January. At that time, the welding class was not even an option or brought before the district to consider. That order only affects the sale or disposal or transfer of the McKinney building. It doesn't have anything to do with any other facilities of the district. And also, we cannot ourselves or the plaintiff's attorneys can't control KDE's decision on any facilities plan. Every district in the state is dependent upon approval through KDE. So at the July meeting, after the issue of the building class came up, we were initially told we couldn't move forward. And then later on, after discussions with KDE, they did agree that we could move forward, just with an asterisk is what we were told, next to the McKinney building.
I think at the March 5th meeting, we were also told about this. And I know that we were also told there that the state would not cover that cost associated with refitting that. Has there been an estimated cost given to us yet about what it's going to cost for that room?
We have not gotten the quote. I didn't want to get anything involved with anything until the Department of Education told us we could officially do that. Kind of answer your previous question, Mr. Smith. I think the reason there may have been a delay from January up until September is because we were sent a letter by the Kentucky Department of Education wanting to know why we hadn't started our district facility plan. And I responded to that saying, because you told us we couldn't. Then that brought the conversation up. Well, let's get with legal. Let's go more in depth. But we finally did get approval on the 16th. As part of that, it says that if the board, it's a local decision, if the board now wants to move forward with the district facilities process, KDE has now indicated their ability to assist us with the process.
Well, I hope it's been addressed, or the reason that came out on the beginning. So I know Mr. Baker and myself have had a talk, but I hope it's also been addressed when it first came out.
Anyone else?
Alan,
Alan?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I got a question about, I guess it was a letter to the editor or something in the paper. I mean, has it been public knowledge of what we've actually spent on the case concerning the McKinney building? I mean, because
Public knowledge.
last I remember, we had the closed executive session when we was discussing the whole topic, and
I think
Somebody had in the paper.
it'd be public would know what our copay is on it. I mean, I think everybody knows that. We have a $10,000 copay on anything that involves legal, which is much better than the $50,000 copay we had in 2016. So that's common. Most school districts had the $10,000 copay.
Anyone else? All right. We'll move on to the district facility plan process. Mr. Rowe, once again.
Yeah, kind of rehashing what I've already said. We're at the point now where KDE says if the board wants to move on, we can. And my recommendation to the board is we do, because by law, we have to do a district facilities plan every 4 years. And right now, they're saying they have the ability to assist us, which is good. The last time we did this, we contracted with Tim Eaton to facilitate the process. I would like for the board to consider that again. The cost is $4,500. The facilities process is pretty in-depth, making sure you follow all the steps that the hurdles that KDE puts in place for that. So there will be a recommendation at our next meeting, if the board agrees to it, to do that with Tim Eaton for $4,500 and lead us through this process, because we have a limited amount of time to get this done, or starting later.
Questions? All right, we'll move on. 2D COVID days, Ms. Cooper.
Yes, the Kentucky Department of Education gave the board the option to approve unlimited COVID days for school employees. And what we're finding is that some staff are in their second round of quarantine, meaning they've used all of their COVID days that were initially given, and now they're having to use sick days based on quarantines that happened because of students in their classroom. So we wanted the board to consider the option of approving unlimited COVID days during this crisis, this pandemic, only for staff who are quarantined. So they would not be able to use these unlimited days to care for family members. It would just be if the staff is quarantined.
So then this would help address the concerns that's been expressed by the Lincoln County Education Association. Then I know we each got an email, so it would help address some of their concerns.
Yes. And we feel like if they're quarantined in our building by the health department or by another medical facility, that's the fair thing to do.
Who covers the cost for those days? Is that something that we absorb, or other funding?
We have CARES funding,
okay,
but it is our responsibility to absorb it, yes.
Sure.
Anyone else? All right. Moving on to the mental health provider, Ms. Cooper.
The Kentucky Center for School Safety, along with KDE and the Kentucky General Assembly, gave each district money to fund positions for mental health providers inside the school. They gave us a little over $43,000 to fund a mental health provider in one of our schools. We're requesting to create a mental health provider position at Stanford Elementary. Currently, they have 589 students enrolled with one school counselor. The money for this position initially was put in the 2-year state budget. We reached out, Leanne and I reached out to the state today, but then COVID hit and the state only did a 1-year budget. So I can't guarantee that this position will be there next year. Initially, they did put the funding in for 2 years, but I don't know what's going to happen with it next year.
Is the salary for that position, I mean, it would be based on our salary schedule.
It would, and with the days left in the school year, I've already calculated it. If we can't cover the whole thing, we'll be really close with salary and benefits. You know, I calculated 4 to 6 years experience on a rank 1 because mental health providers are usually a rank 1. And that got me 36,424. That's without health insurance. So I think we'll be really, really close. If we have to pay anything, it will be minimal.
Okay. Thank you.
If we cannot find again, just like the other one, if we can't find a candidate or anybody interested in that position, is this one that we can revise the title of that and still get the funding, or does it have to be specific for mental health?
This encompasses licensed social workers. It encompasses LCSWs, certified social workers, school counselors, school social workers. So there's a wide variety there. So hopefully we'll have some interest in this position.
Good.
Anyone else? All right. Next up is the MOA with Eastern Kentucky University for dual credit classes. Mr. Rowe.
Yeah, this is routine, things we do quite often. This allows our students to get dual credit for some of the classes they take at the high school, as long as a teacher is certified to be able to offer that through EKU. So this is an opportunity for our kids to earn dual credit, and we just need to be able to sign the contract saying that we'll continue doing what we've done in the past.
Any questions? All right. Medical service for early childhood participants, Ms. Hahn.
Hello. This is actually kind of a twofold deal. One of these were actually presented in April by Ms. Killen for approval by the board. They approved the contracts, but they have not gotten the contracts signed. So they were not part of the board action and in the record when that was done in April. So we have gotten those contracts signed. And so basically it's just putting those medical contracts into the board documentation, really. So it's not necessarily an approval. It's the same contracts we've used for years with those folks. We've just gotten the rates set and had those all signed by the providers. So I just want to get those in record. The mental health, however, is a little bit different. We have elected to go with a different provider than we have gone with before. The provider that we used before had a minimum of 1 classroom visit per year for our kiddos, and they met with us a few times through the year. We have actually chosen to go with a different provider, and this provider is actually going to do 3 classroom visits per year. Of course, with this COVID year is a little bit different. They won't be able to get in our classrooms. They will come once we get back in session, but of course, we're a third of the way through the year. They're going to do 3 classroom visits per year, and they're going to meet with us at least every other month and quite a bit of consultation. This provider also has a facility for specifically play therapy, which is more concentrated towards our population. And so they actually have a play therapy new facility that they have a room that they can do play therapy in for our families and our kiddos. So we just felt like it was a better fit for our group. And we just upped it about $3,000, but that we're getting 3 times the amount of services from this company. They're a very reputable company. We have used them in the school system for years. And I have to say, with my work with the mental health, when I was DPP, they came running every time after hours and were great to work with. So that's our request. And I have put that before the policy council and they agree.
So is this a change from on that one mental health? Will it be something like we'll next week have to approve like a new contract, or
yes, and
change, right?
Yeah, the contract's attached and it should be in your board documents today.
For next week.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes. And it's something we have worked together on. We've sent drafts back and forth between myself and the provider, and we've kind of come to an agreement on that. We both agree of kind of what's in the contract, of course. So just making sure you all approve that and are on board to let us get in that contract with them. Mental health services are required by our Head Start contract as well. That it is something we have to have. We're just making a choice in provider.
Any other questions? Okay. Changes to the salary schedule, Ms. Cooper.
Yes. So Brandy went over the early Head Start and the preschool changes at the last board meeting, and the cells were too small in the 25 years plus, and they didn't show up in your salary schedule. So I wanted to make sure that you guys saw the hourly rate. So if you turn to page 2, any changes are in red, and they're not really changes. They were there. The cell was just too small and it didn't show up. So the hourly rate at the bottom of page 2 for the early Head Start teachers with a CDA, associate degree, and bachelor degree are all listed there. And all that is their daily rate divided by 7. And then the family liaisons with the associate degree and bachelor's degree are also listed there in red. And again, that's just their daily rate divided by 7. And the only thing that was added is we did not have a sub rate for 21st century coordinator. And we have sub rates for every other position. And we're going to have subs if they're absent. So we added that sub rate for a 21st century coordinator. Those are the only changes.
Questions?
Can I make a comment real quick?
Yes.
I would like to compliment Ms. Cooper on her hard work getting our salary schedule, everything up to date. There's been a lot of things we didn't have in it, and our hard work has helped find things that should be in it to make it up where it needs to be. So I'm going to say kudos to her for her hard work.
Absolutely. All right. Contract with DOE, Leanne Smith.
I'm not Brad Smith, even though it looks like I was going to be him before I popped up. I'm much funnier. This is just a standard. It's a standard thing to do that the board approves all contracts. It's just a contract with Danville Office Equipment for Highland. They are purchasing a new machine, what's new to them, copy machine with instructional money, and they just are going to need approval for the service contract.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Review policy on fundraising activities, Mr. Rowe.
Yes, the board is, at least since I've been here, the board has been approving basically all fundraising activities that come through. Our policy doesn't necessarily say that is the process we're supposed to be using. Basically, our current policy says if it's only a school-wide fundraiser. So a lot of fundraisers would not require approval of the board if they chose not to want to do that. Something I'd like the board to consider is maybe having our school councils approve those. They'll be submitted to the principal. The school council will be the ones who would approve those. Then maybe have a threshold set at the district level. If it's, say, over $2,000, then it needs to come to the district. That way we could have some oversight about that. But at this point, this is something that the board does not have to do if they choose not to. And so I'll just open it up for you all to discuss.
I'd like to mention something about that. A couple of things, and part of this was brought up by a comment that Alan made at one of our meetings, but also the fact that we get a lot of those fundraisers that, maybe a principal hadn't signed off on it yet. And, that's not good either, but I also know as a former principal, stuff gets by you sometimes and you miss things. I get that. And I really think that going to the site-based council approval of fundraisers at the school building level will add another level of oversight on everything. And I feel like that's a good way to go. So
I totally agree. I don't think it'd be a bad idea to just have it in a review document, just something for to review, so we know what's going on. But I absolutely love giving schools their own responsibility and their own ownership and giving them an opportunity to do what's right for them, especially if it speeds the process up. I know there's been several instances to where they've needed the approval and we're a little bit behind. Well, they're a little bit behind, or the meeting didn't fall just right and they, had some scheduling problems. So absolutely think it's a great thing to give them the opportunity to do that and just make sure they know insurances and things like that need to be in place prior to having a fundraiser for sure.
The Red Book does state that unless a fundraiser is school-wide, that it's not required to be approved by the board. When we had our Red Book training last month, Ron Flannery pointed that out, that we were actually more restrictive than Red Book because we have the board approve every fundraiser. So it would be within Red Book guidelines if we decided to let the schools approve those at the school level.
Will that take a policy change? Is that something we'll need to look at and maybe have a draft policy because it'll take 2 readings?
Yes, sir.
And there's a couple of schools around us that already have that in place that maybe we could look at some of their stuff to get some guidelines there too, in addition to KSBA or anybody else. Any other questions on that? All right. Faculty requests for athletics. facility request for athletics.
In your packet, you will see that we have 2 requests for Little League basketball, one coming from Houstonville and the other coming from Crab Orchard. Expect to get more for one for each of the schools. So it's time for us for you as a board to have a conversation of what do we do during COVID with Little League basketball. In the past, we've allowed them to use our facilities, and I think it's good for the feeder programs to make things better. But this is during COVID, and it's during different times. I've also attached in your packet a list of the concerns from the health department, and I've also listed what some of the surrounding school districts are doing. It's kind of a 50-50. Some school districts at this point have not approved for them to be indoors for Little League basketball. They're allowing it for outdoor for football. Again, that's kind of a hodgepodge back and forth. The Lincoln County Health Department says the biggest concern is who will enforce the social distancing guidelines and crowd control for the games, and also about the disinfectant that must be taken into consideration after using the gyms for practices. I would like for the board to discuss this now. If there's any questions that I can ask between this meeting and the next meeting to help you make a decision, please let me know. I'll write those down and I'll reach out and ask questions on your behalf.
I suppose limiting attendance would not be an option, would it?
On the request, it had 4 guests per player.
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be limited to a certain extent. I think the big concern for the board to consider, and I'm a proponent for sports, don't get me wrong, is who's going to control. When they say crowd control, it's masks, if people wear them or not. Are we going to have an employee or rely upon the booster club to do that? Because, we don't want to be in a situation where there's an argument or something develops. That I saw at Walmart last night. So just one of those things for us to think about. And I think it's a good idea for us to do, but just figure out how we're going to handle that.
Another question I have, I'm sorry, Alan, I jumped on top of you, but I'll get you, is, when a facility gets rented, that group is required to provide their own liability insurance. And I'm curious if there's differences now with current COVID situations that's reflected in the new insurances that they have to carry. That would be something I would wonder about. Alan, I've talked over the top of you. You want to go next?
Yeah, what I was going to say is it something like they've done in some other places about like field trips and everything else? Can you sign a waiver? Anybody that comes in the building, in the gymnasium, and then you're going to have to limit it to on Saturdays and maybe one day a week because somebody's going to have to clean the place and disinfect it after everybody leaves, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And
I got,
when you're finished.
well, let me ask one more question while we're at it. And is it just, I looked over the information. Is it Highland the only one that's needing the gymnasium that's wanting to use theirs, or the only thing I'm going to say, we still own a property at Kings Mountain that we're not having school in at the time. Could they not use that gymnasium, and that would kind of get us off the hook as far as contaminating the school facility?
We have 2 facility requests that did not make it in time for this meeting. And I think I have 2 facility requests that are on the upcoming meeting. So no, it's not just one school.
But would that possibly be an option to use? We have actually, as of right now, we have 2 gymnasiums sitting empty. The McKinney property and the Kings Mountain property. Would it be possible that they could have a Little League basketball there?
Probably, Mr. Yaden, are you still on here? You could probably tell us a little update about the facilities.
Well, the issue with that is, Alan, they've been completely winterized. Both of them have cold heat, all that. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but that would be a matter of firing everything back up and getting that stuff to work and unwinterizing it and all that for bathrooms and all that type stuff. So that's the only issue. That would be the biggest issue. That would just be the heat.
Well, only comment I'd like to make, would it be possible if it worked out, we could do that? How much trouble is the heating issue? But as far as the winterizing deal, could we not put porta-johns outside like you do everything else and lock the bathrooms?
That's something we could consider. The furnaces in both places are, coal furnaces, and they're not in the best of shape. That would be interesting who's going to take care of those on the weekend and keep them stoked up and all that. How we Little League basketball has worked in the past, as long as I can remember, we just give them permission to use our facilities, and they have their liability insurance, and it's their their deal to run. Like, somebody had said earlier, I think Jonathan said it earlier, who's going to be in charge of enforcing all that? It'd have to be them to be in charge, because, they're in charge of their, it's their rec league or their program or whatever. But now I have heard some good plans. A couple of the directors have talked to me. They're already trying to figure out how they could, have one game, clear the gym, have a half hour, 45 minutes between the game, have another game, those type things. So there's a lot of conversation out there right now that's going on, that because, what I've told them so far, and this is just me talking, is, it might not start as early as it usually does this year. It might have to wait a little bit, kind of see how high school goes and all that type of stuff. And that's just me talking to them. I mean, that's just back and forth. But they are very, very willing to do whatever it takes to, get those guys out there.
So could we just add some additional things when they request to use the facility that would address these concerns by the health department, that someone has to be named to be in control of watching over the mask and social distancing? And then, I mean, if they don't want to disinfect, then they would have to pay our people, or?
Well, in the past, yeah. Bruce, how that's kind of went down. It's kind of been a practice that I've known. They've always kind of paid our people to clean and do those type things.
Right.
And I think we will have to have if we go down this route and decide to let them use our facilities, that we'll have to have a kind of a guideline or whatever, a sheet that they all going to have to go by, uniform thing. And they know that, and they're willing to do that. You all know Mac Dunn. I've talked to Mac plenty of times. I actually talked to Mac today about it. And, they know that there's going to be a lot of changes being made this year, and it's not going to look like it has in the past.
I got a few things to add as well. And I like the thought of being able to use those two other gyms, but strategically, there's absolutely no way that could ever work with the amount of fans, the changeover, the teams. I would hate to put that pressure on them to try to do that in two buildings. I mean, that's kind of a benefit to them to be able to use every school. But it's just my opinion. I would love to table this even until the 1st of November. They're not even going to start practice till the end of the month anyway. So I would rather table it till the 1st or 2nd week of November, and give them the ability to go ahead and start doing signups and collecting those rosters to know kind of what participation they're even going to have. I mean, we know how important this Little League basketball is to our county. It's a wonderful thing to go to. And I don't even have kids in the system, but I go to as many Little League games as I can to watch my friends' kids play. And but I think that if we give them time to get their rosters and know exactly how many kids they're working with, the 4 fans with having to follow with KHSA's rules with 25% capacity, there's no way that 4 fans are going to be able to come with each kid. And I think they know that. I think, and I know that they're in the process of revising a lot of their guidelines also. So that'll give them another month of revising it, us figuring out what in the world this virus is actually going to look like in another month, understanding what the CDC guidelines and the health department is going to require for them to also add into that, and giving us a better idea of knowing what we need to do from a district to provide a safe facility for them. I mean, it's not just about, them coming onto our facilities and keeping it clean. We need to make sure that we're keeping it clean and the processes for them also. So, and I know, Darren, I know you are doing a great job. I know Coach E's doing a great job. And I just really challenge you all to work with those folks, those directors, and saying, hey, look, these are the that we're dealing with. These are the hurdles that we've had to cross. And here's some supplies that we may have extra of that can save you all a little bit of money, because we do know already, outside of the donations that we receive for sports, we're not making enough money to cover the cost for the referees. So it's not going to be any different for the Little League. And I know it's not our responsibility where it's a different program, but it is our kids and it is our county and it is our facility. So I think we've got some obligation to where we need to try to help them as much as we can. But I believe if we table it and give them another month to get rosters going, see what kind of participation they're going to have, then they can make a decision at that point, 1 to 2 fans per family. Maybe this stuff, I'm not even going to say it, but maybe it gets better. Let's just put it that way. Let's just say maybe things get better and we can just let them have 4 fans. Go ahead.
So when are they really wanting to start playing?
November 30th, and I think the first game's in December. Is that right, Darren?
Yeah, that's just traditionally is what they have done in the past. But they're aware that that can change. And what
Yeah.
I was thinking earlier, and actually when I talked to Mac a little bit today, I would kind of like for them to wait a little bit and see how high school goes, because we really don't know exactly what the regulations are going to be for basketball with high school right now. And
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have basketball, I think, but we're really not sure exactly how that's going to look. We do know they're only allowing 2 games at a time, only double headers. They're not allowing like freshman JV and varsity and all that. So, we would like for them to kind of see how that goes too. And yes, I'm 100% behind them. I think we can accommodate them to play some basketball this year.
Yeah, I do too. And I think waiting and not making a decision today is just us doing our due diligence. Give them till the second week of November. Let them do their rosters. Let them see what the participation is going to be, and then we can make a vote on it then. And it gives us opportunity to help too. Sorry, Al.
No, that's fine. I agree with you. The only thing I was going to say, we don't necessarily need to table it, but don't need to vote on it either. But just pass the word along that we're ready to help out. They just need to have a plan together what's going to take place when they come back a little bit closer to time.
So-
that way we ain't just putting it on down the road. Maybe they'll have the plan in place, exactly what's going to take place as far as who's going to run it and everything like that.
Okay.
And maybe
Colin.
it's the things that we need to put to them too, mixture of the two, and maybe be able to go over that at our next working meeting.
Darren, I would ask, I think that Ricky brought up a good point. I mentioned that the proposal is for guest per player. It's probably not going to work. Could we go to each gymnasium and figure out the occupancy so we already know what the 20 to 25%, that's what it is currently. It may change, but that way we can have a figure and let them know here's the most you can have, so they know what to expect up front.
Yeah.
Sure, I think we definitely can do that. We actually had that conversation a little bit today. Just while we're talking about it, what's our biggest school probably has the smallest gym capacity. That'd be Stanford. So it's going to be interesting to kind of figure out. But they're one, just like all of us are on this call right now. We all want these kids to be able to do that. It's a big deal for our county. I know that, and we're about the kids. I think we can definitely make it happen. It might just be they might just have to start the season a little bit later this year. That's the only thing that I had told them.
And I think there's some benefits to come with that also,
Yeah.
and maybe in the future. So
Right. Might be something we do every year. Exactly.
yeah, so
All right.
I think we can all come together and come up with something great.
I believe so also. All right. We have 2 possible action items at the end of our agenda. 3A, purchases over $30,000. Leanne Smith.
Yes, we have 3 debt payments that need to be approved. They all go to US Bank. You should have the invoices attached there with your agenda packet. There's one for $30,815 that it was for a roofing project. One for $71,922.50, which was for energy efficiency projects at 7 schools. And then another that's for $91,350 that was for an energy conservation project. And good to note, that last one, that's our final payment on that one. So that will pay that one off.
Okay.
Good.
So do we need to have a separate motion on each of these, or can we group them all together?
I think probably the way they're listed, Colleen would want us to do it all
So-
as one
All
motion.
one, okay.
Yes, I think so, unless she wants to speak up and say otherwise. I think where they're listed on there is 3A, that we would want to approve it all under that one item.
Okay.
Please, yeah, prove it as one thing.
Okay, very good. Open for a motion.
So moved, Bruce.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Smith makes the motion. Alan seconds. All those in, can't do it that way, can I? Bruce,
Yes.
Ricky,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
and I vote yes also. All right. Next, 3B, COVID-19 contact tracer. Ms. Cooper?
First and foremost, I want to say kudos to Tracy Griffin. My gosh, what a job that 1 week of school. I think everybody played a role in trying to help at some point, but that doesn't even compare to the hours that she spent trying to track down and trace who had been exposed to need to be quarantined for COVID. And I would not want Diane Miller's job for any amount of money. I can say that. What we're requesting is it's a temporary COVID-19 contact tracer for this year. I used the job description from another district and a state agency, and then we added some specifics for Lincoln County that we felt were necessary in our job description to approve this position. FEMA, now Leanne will have to apply for the FEMA funds, but FEMA will reimburse us for 75% of this position. They have funds for that if we get approved. It's too big of a job. There needs to be one dedicated person to contact tracing. It's huge. As we've seen in the number of quarantines this 1 week of school, I don't see it going away. I don't see it changing. So that's the request on the board agenda.
Are the school contact tracers being paid any type of stipend? I noticed in the information it said there were school contact tracers.
And that's normally, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think lots of assistant principals have picked up that role. I think there's a couple secretaries that have picked up that role. You know, they're not spending the nights and weekends and days. Tracy's the contact with Diane Miller right now, and she is bombarded. She can't do anything else. And we've all helped. It's not that she's done it alone. I feel like everybody has tried to help, but it's a huge undertaking.
I wanted to speak up with regards to the FEMA funding. That is something that FEMA has preliminarily said that they would approve. They only cover up to 75% though of any approved expense. The process to get approval to cover that position will actually take several months. And so I asked my FEMA rep, what happens if we, advertise for this, hire somebody? And he said, well, likely it'll be approved, but if not, of course, we always have our CARES money that we can use to cover the full expense. So we're either looking at FEMA paying 75% and the general fund covering 25%, or we could use our CARES money, which of course would deplete the money that we have with CARES, not deplete it completely, but we would use that money that's been allocated to us to pay it in full. And we still have a little over $1 million of CARES money. But if we can use FEMA, I would recommend doing that so that we can hold on to as much of that CARES money as we can for as long as we can, since we don't know how long this is all going to last.
What kind of position is it salary wise? Where does it fit on the schedule?
It's a classified position. It's a lot of responsibility. We put it in the same class as a family resource center coordinator, which is a CL 29. Starting rate's $18.59 an hour. Most of the jobs that I saw in Jefferson County, Fayette County were $20 an hour starting out.
Okay. Any questions further?
I also want to point out, it was recommended, pretty much required by FEMA that the job title include the word temporary, in that we are not establishing a long-term position, but we are establishing a position as long as we need it due to COVID-19.
Right.
Is there any software? I know that sounds crazy, but is there any additional items we need to purchase to assist this person in that position before they get here?
I don't know how you could. I really don't know. It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
is what it is.
All right. This is one of those action items. Motion to approve the position.
motion, Ricky.
Ricky makes a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Bruce.
Bruce makes a second. Bruce, vote.
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
Alan?
Yeah.
And I vote yes also. All right. Any further comments? All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it. We are adjourned.